The silence of the Bennett mansion was expensive. That was the best way to describe it, expensive. It wasn't the silence of peace, the kind that came with a quiet morning by the sea or a child's gentle nap. It was the silence of marble floors, of 20-foot ceilings that swallowed sound, of sprawling glass walls that looked out over Los Angeles as if the city itself were a stage meant only for observatio and never participation. Clara Bennett had lived with that silence for 12 years, and she had become its curator. She dusted it, polished it, kept it pristine, the way some women kept china cabinets. She had traded her career as a rising museum curator and expert in architectural history for this real wife of Victo. Our Bennett Real Estate Titan magazine cover mogul, a man whose phone calls could shift the direction of entire city councils. Once, Clara had believed in the dream. Victor's charm had been blinding in those early days. He had swept her from lecture halls into penthouses, from coffee shops into champagne galas. He made promises in that booming, velvet voice of his, the kind of promises that made you believe he could bend the world if he just wanted it badly enough. But slowly, she had realized Victor only ever bent the world for himself. The first crack in the illusion wasn't a thunderclap. It was lipstick, a faint smear of red that wasn't her shade on the lapel of his cashmere jacket. She noticed it while hanging up his suit one evening, her fingers brushing the fabric like they had 100 times before. She froze, staring at it, her chest hollowing out. The second crack came as perfume, sweet, cloying, the kind a 20-something influencer might wear, heavy enough to choke. It clung to him even after long showers. Like a perfume bottle had exploded in his car, the third crack was harder to ignore. Late night phone calls on the balcony. His back turned deliberately toward the glass walls. His voice lowered, silky. Clara would lie in their cavernous bedroom, staring at the ceiling, knowing without knowing. And then, worst of all, his eyes changed. Victor had always had a way of looking at her that made her feel lit up from the inside, like she was both a work of art and the only critic that mattered. But that look had been replaced. Now, when he looked at her, his eyes went flat, clinical, as if she were an investment property whose value was dropping. Through it all, there was Ethan. Ethan Bennett was 6 years old and the beating heart of Clara's world, bright, inquisitive, with a sensitivity that could bring him to tears at sad songs and a laugh that could fill every cold corner of the mansion. He had inherited Victor's sharp eyes, but his mother's imagination. He could draw for hours. Dinosaurs and knights and fantastical castles with turrets leaning dangerously sideways. But Ethan also carried with him a constant shadow, his severe peanut allergy. It wasn't mild. It wasn't carry some Benadryl, just in case. It was deadly. A trace amount could send him into anaphylactic shock within minutes. Clara's vigilance was a 24/7 occupation. She packed his school lunches with military precision. She interrogated restaurant chefs like a prosecuting attorney. She had drilled teachers, babysitters, and even casual acquaintances on how to use the EpiPen. The EpiPen itself was practically an extension of her body. One in her purse, one in Ethan's backpack, one on his nightstand. Victor, however, treated the allergy like a footnote. Clara exaggerates, he would say to friends. She treats a peanut like it's plutonium. He'd laugh, and others would laugh with him, not realizing or not caring that what they were laughing at was life or death. For Clara, Ethan wasn't just her son. He was her reason, her anchor, the one thing that made the silence bearable. The end came on a Tuesday, and it came not with screaming, but with paper. A courier, clearly uncomfortable, stood in the marble entryway holding a thick manila envelope. Clara took it with numb hands, thanked him automatically, and closed the door. She slid her finger under the flap and pulled out the contents. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her knees gave out. She sank onto the cold steps of the grand staircase, papers trembling in her grip. But it wasn't just the divorce, oh no. Victor wasn't simply discarding her. He was asking for sole custody of Ethan. Her stomach twisted as she scanned the words. The petition was a masterpiece of character assassination, crafted by Gideon Crane, Victor's ruthless attorney. Clara was painted as hysterical, overprotective, unstable. Her constant vigilance around Ethan's allergy was twisted into paranoia that stifled the child's development. Victor, meanwhile, was portrayed as the picture of stability, a man of resources, a provider, ready to build a better life for Ethan with his stable new partner. The partner was not named, but Clara knew. Lana Monroe, the influencer whose face had been all over gossip blogs. Her long legs and blonde waves splashed across photos of her stepping off Victor's jet, laughing at charity galas, clutching handbags that cost more than Clara's monthly grocery bill, 10 years younger than Clara, 10 times more glamorous. The silence of the mansion shattered then, ripped apart by a sob that tore its way out of Clara's chest. Clara's first call was to her sister. The second was to a lawyer her sister recommended, Elena Chavez. Elena's office was a far cry from Victor's glass wall empire. It was modest, cluttered with case files, the air rich with the smell of strong coffee. A cat dozed on the windowsill, ignoring the world. Elena listened silently as Clara poured out the story. When Clara finally finished, trembling, Elena leaned forward, her dark eyes steady. David versus Goliath, she said quietly. And I'll be honest, Clara, Goliath has a war chest. Victor will bury you in paperwork. He'll spin the media. He'll paint you as the hysterical wife he had to save his son from. But you have one thing he doesn't, Clara whispered, almost broken. I'm his mother. Yes. Elena's expression hardened with resolve. You know the dinosaur he loves. You know he needs Captain Buttons to fall asleep. You know a trace of peanut oil could kill him. That is what we bring to court. They have power. We have truth. And in custody battles, truth is the only weapon that matters. For the first time since the envelope arrived, Clara felt something stir in her chest that wasn't despair. Hope. Victor wasted no time lunching his offensive. The financial siege came first. Clara's credit cards were canceled overnight, joint accounts frozen. The household funds she had managed for over a decade vanished like smoke. A court order granted her a temporary allowance, a fraction of what Victor probably spent on a single dinner with clients. Clara, who had once hosted galas for hundreds, now found herself fumbling for a debit card at the grocery store. Humiliation was part of the strategy. Then came the media war. Gossip columns that had once praised her as a flawless hostess now ran anonymous insider stories about her instability. Lana posted carefully curated Instagram content, nut-free recipes, inspirational quotes about blended families, even a tearful story about how love makes a family, not just blood. It was warfare by hashtag. The depositions were brutal. Gideon Crane sat across from Clara like a shark scenting blood. His voice was smooth, practiced, lethal. Mrs. Bennett, you've forbidden your son from attending classmates' birthday parties, haven't you? Yes, if the home wasn't safe from cross-contamination. So you deprived your son of normal social interaction. Because of your paranoia, I protected him from a fatal allergy. Crane smiled thinly. You also pulled him from soccer practice, art classes, even a school field trip to a bakery. Isn't it true you've trapped your son in a cage of your own anxieties? Each question was a dart, designed to twist love into madness. Across the table, Victor sat calm, grave, the picture of a concerned father forced into action. He never once met Clara's eyes. When she left the deposition room, Clara's hands shook. But she remembered Elena's words. They have power. We have truth. And she clung to that like a lifeline. Weeks later came the first supervised visit between Ethan and Lana. It took place in a sterile beach visitation center that smelled faintly of disinfectant. Clara handed Ethan over, her chest aching like she'd been asked to surrender a limb. Lana arrived like a lifestyle. A cashmere sweater, glowing smile, perfectly waved hair. She knelt before Ethan, cooing, "Hi, buddy, I brought you something." She handed him a box, neatly wrapped. Inside was a drone far too advanced for a 6-year-old. Ethan clutched Captain buttons instead, mumbling, "My mommy says I can't fly those yet." Lana's smile faltered, but she pressed on. Halfway through the visit, she made her fatal mistake. "Feeling tired, sweetheart," she chirped, pulling a brightly colored bar from her designer handbag. "Try this. It's vegan. All natural." Ethan froze. "I can't. I have allergies." "Oh, don't worry." Lana laughed. "It's healthy. Totally fine." She peeled the wrapper back. The supervisor, who had been watching silently, suddenly stepped forward. "Ma'am, what are the ingredients?" Lana blinked. "Ah, seeds, dates. It says processed in a facility with peanuts." The supervisor snatched it away, her voice ice. "This child's file states a severe peanut allergy. This could have killed him." Lana flushed crimson. Not from fear, but humiliation. She had failed her performance. When Clara returned, Ethan ran into her arms. "That lady tried to give me bad food," he whispered. It was the ammunition Elena had been waiting for. Victor Bennett didn't fight like a husband scorned. He fought like a CEO preparing for a hostile takeover. His strategy came in 2 waves. First, the financial chokehold. Clara woke one morning to find her credit cards declined, her bank accounts frozen. Overnight, she went from living in a mansion with a wine cellar to counting crumpled bills in her wallet at Trader Joe's. At the checkout line, when her card was declined in front of a weary cashier and 3 impatient customers, she wanted to cry. Instead, she forced a brittle smile, dug through her purse, and found a spare debit card attached to her son's savings account. Victor had turned grocery shopping into humiliation theater. The second wave was propaganda. Gossip blogs, which once fawned over Clara's soirees and flower arrangements, now whispered about her emotional volatility. Anonymous family friends suggested she was suffocating Ethan, that her obsession with his allergy was robbing him of a normal childhood. Meanwhile, Lana Monroe ever the opportunist shifted her brand. Her Instagram feed pivoted from luxury, resorts, and skincare ads to wholesome motherhood content. Videos of her making nut-free brownies went viral. She posted captions like, "Love is what makes a family. Blended families are the future bonus mom life." Her millions of followers swooned. The timing was no coincidence. Clara felt like she was trapped in a bad parody of her own life, somewhere between Lana's TikTok dances with captions about courage and Victor's carefully staged paparazzi photos. Clara realized she wasn't just fighting for her son in court. She was fighting for him in the court of public opinion. The first deposition nearly broke her. Gideon Crane, Victor's attorney, had the predatory calm of a shark. He sat across from Clara with his sleek tie and expensive watch, flipping through papers as if they were menus. His voice was soft, almost kind, which somehow made the cruelty worse. "Mrs. Bennett, you've admitted you prevented Ethan from attending birthday parties." "Correct." Clara's hands clenched. "Only when the environment wasn't safe for his allergy. So you deprived him of normal childhood experiences because of your own anxieties. I saved him from a possible emergency room visit." Crane tilted his head, as if speaking to a delusional patient. "You also withdrew him from soccer, art classes, and even a school field trip to a bakery. Would you agree that you've created a bubble around him? A bubble of fear?" Clara's throat tightened. "I've created a safe environment for him. There's a difference." Crane's smile was thin, smug. "Or perhaps, Mrs. Bennett, you simply cannot cope with the normal risks of childhood. Perhaps you are projecting your own insecurities onto your son." From across the room, Victor watched in silence, his face solemn, his posture impeccable. He played the part of the long-suffering father forced to intervene. He never once looked at Clara. By the end of the session, Clara felt as if she'd been stripped bare. When she stumbled out, Elena was waiting with a firm hand on her shoulder. "Breathe," Eleanor said softly. "That was round 1. He's a snake, But remember, he can only twist the truth so far. In the end, it's the details of Ethan's life that matter. And you, Clara, you know every one of them. The supervised visit disaster with Lanner, and the peanut-contaminated energy bar quickly made its way into Eleanor's legal arsenal. The supervisor's report was damning. Lana had nearly offered a fatal snack, but Victor, of course, spun it differently. That night he called Clara, his voice seething with fury. You poisoned him against her. He snapped. What are you talking about? You filled Ethan's head with paranoia. He staged that. He made her look bad on purpose. Victor. Clara said, her voice trembling with both rage and disbelief. Your girlfriend almost gave our son peanuts. This isn't theater. This is his life. She's trying, he roared. Trying to love my son. And you're doing everything you can to sabotage it. The line went dead. Clara stood in her kitchen, phone in hand, shaking. For the first time, she understood Victor didn't see Ethan's allergy as a danger. He saw it as a bargaining chip, a narrative. He was willing to gamble his son's life for the sake of image. Elena, when Clara recounted the call, only sighed grimly. Good. Let him put her on the stand. Let the judge see exactly how careless they are. Sometimes, Clara, the best thing you can do is give your opponent enough rope. The custody battle wasn't confined to the courtroom. Every week brought new headlines. Victor Bennett's new love, the woman who saved him from chaos. Clara Bennett's meltdown at school drop-off. Exclusive. Inside the glamorous, peanut-free life of Victor and Lana. Paparazzi stalked Clara's every move. Once, at Ethan's school pickup, she dropped his lunchbox in the parking lot and scrambled to collect the spilled carrots and crackers. The next morning, a gossip site ran the photo with the headline, Is Clara too unstable to parent alone? Ethan, thankfully, was too young to read headlines, but he noticed the tension. One night, he looked up from his Lego castle and asked, Mommy, why are people taking pictures of us? Clara hugged him tightly. Because they don't understand what's important. The trial began on a gray Monday morning in downtown Los Angeles. The family courtroom was small but imposing, paneled in dark wood, the air heavy with still solemnity. Judge Margaret O'Connor presided from the bench, her face unreadable. Victor entered in a tailored navy suit, exuding authority. Lana followed, immaculate in a cream dress, her posture flawless. Clara arrived in a modest navy blazer, her nerves a storm beneath her calm exterior. Eleanor sat beside her, calm, composed, a quiet anchor. The first 2 days were brutal. Crane paraded witnesses, a child psychologist on Victor's payroll who claimed Clara's vigilance bordered on pathological, a former nanny who testified Clara was controlling, even one of Victor's business associates, who painted him as the epitome of stability. Each witness chipped away at Clara's image, layer by layer. When Clara finally took the stand, Crane went for the jugular. Mrs. Bennett, you say you're a devoted mother. But isn't it true you've created a prison for your son? Isn't it true you abandoned your promising career because you couldn't handle real pressure? And now you cling to Ethan because he's all you have left? Clara's eyes burned, but her voice was steady. My purpose is raising a healthy, safe child. That is the most important job in the world, and I have never considered it a failure. For a moment, the courtroom stilled. Even Crane faltered, but only for a moment. When Victor took the stand, he was dazzling. He spoke of love in grand strokes. I want my son to see the world. He declared to have opportunities, to be bold, to dream without limits. I have the resources to give him everything. His mother, he said, his voice dripping with controlled sorrow, is shrinking his world with her fears. It was a performance worthy of an awards show. Elena cross-examined him, asking about his long work hours, his constant travel. Victor turned it into martyrdom. I work hard for my family, he said, turning toward Judge O'Connor. Everything I do is for Ethan. Clara felt her stomach twist. He was winning the performance war. And then came the moment she had been dreading. The defense calls Lena Monroe to the stand, Crane announced, his voice triumphant. Gasps rippled through the room. Clara's heart pounded, the mistress in a custody trial. It was audacious, reckless. And if they pulled it off, devastating. When Gideon Crane announced her name, a hush fell over the courtroom. The defense calls Lena Monroe. Clara's breath caught. Elena leaned closer, whispering, "Don't panic. Remember, she's rehearsed for Instagram, not for this." Lana glided to the witness stand with the poise of a runway model. Every step seemed choreographed. Cream-colored dress, glossy hair pulled into a tasteful bun. A smile radiating calm competence. She looked like the cover of Modern Motherhood magazine. Crane's questions were soft, guiding. "Miss Monroe, how would you describe your relationship with Ethan?" Lana beamed. "It's developing beautifully. He's such a bright, wonderful little boy. I care for him deeply, and you understand the challenges of his medical condition." "Of course," she said gravely. "His safety is my absolute top priority. And if Victor is awarded custody, oh, we have so many dreams," Lena gushed. "We'll travel. I want him to see the pyramids, the museums of Florence. But most of all, I want to give him a stable, loving home, free of anxiety." The unspoken words hung heavy. Unlike his mother, Clara's fists clenched under the table. Lana was good, terrifyingly good. Elena Chavez rose, calm and steady. She didn't stride, didn't posture. She simply walked toward Lana with the measured confidence of someone who knew the script was about to unravel. "Miss Monroe," she began warmly, "you're a successful digital brand strategist." "Correct, yes." Lana's chin lifted. "And that requires constant travel, photo shoots, brand partnerships, content creation." "Yes, but I manage it effectively. Women can balance career and motherhood." "Of course," Elena nodded. "So tell me, what's Ethan's favorite bedtime story?" Lena blinked. "Oh, he has so many. We encourage a wide range of literature. And his best friend at school, he's very social. Lots of friends." Elena's voice was gentle, but her questions cut like a scalpel. "What's his pediatrician's name?" "His favorite snack, the silly song his mother sings to get him to brush his teeth." With each question, Lena faltered. She glanced desperately toward Victor. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed. But he couldn't save her. The cracks in her flawless facade widened. Then Eleanor delivered the killing blow. "You've testified you're prepared for his allergy. Please, for the record, describe the physical symptoms of anaphylaxis." Lena swallowed. "It's, trouble breathing, maybe a rash, and the immediate first step you would take. I'd call 911 right away." "Not administer epinephrine first?" Ellen asked softly. Lana stammered. "Well, we'd have a nanny with medical training." The courtroom shifted, murmurs rippled. The image shattered. Lana wasn't a mother figure. She was a manager outsourcing responsibility. Victor's pen tapped furiously on the table, a rare crack in his composure. Judge Margaret O'Connor raised her hand. "That's enough, Miss Chavez." Elena stepped back. Satisfied, the judge adjusted her glasses. Her gaze sharp as a hawk, she looked directly at Victor. "Mr. Bennett, please stand." Victor rose smoothly, though Clara saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. "You've testified at length about the superior environment you can provide," Judge O'Connor said evenly. "You've dismissed your wife's caution as neurosis. So for the record, I will ask you a simple question." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. "What is the dosage of your son's epinephrine auto-injector? And what are the exact 3 steps required to administer it?" It was the question of a parent. Victor froze. His mouth opened, then closed. He glanced at Crane, who could offer nothing, at Lana, who looked stricken. "It's the standard dose for a child." He stammered. "You take the cap off and press it into the thigh." He trailed off, blank. The titan of real estate, a man who could recall zoning codes and stock prices by heart, couldn't answer the most basic question about keeping his son alive for the first time. Clara saw fear in his eyes. "Mrs. Bennett," Judge O'Connor said, turning to her. For the record, Clara rose. Her voice clear and steady. 0.15 milligrams. You remove the blue safety cap. Place the orange tipper against the outer thigh at 90 degrees. Press until you hear a click and hold for 3 seconds. Then call 911 and report epinephrine has been administered. The silence that followed was final. Everyone in that courtroom knew the case was over. 3 days later, a courier delivered the ruling. Clara was granted sole custody of Ethan. Victor's visitation would be supervised, conditional on him completing a pediatric first aid course. Judge O'Connor's words were brutal. Mr. Bennett has demonstrated profound ignorance of his son's critical medical needs and a prioritization of image over responsibility. Victor, the man who had never lost anything, had been reduced to EpiPen dad. Gossip blogs pounced with glee. Memes circulated. Victor holding an oversized EpiPen. Victor Googling peanut allergy. Victor caption millionaire dad doesn't know how to dad. Lana vanished almost overnight. Rebranding herself as an advocate for self-love after toxic relationships, Victor was left standing alone. Clara sold the mansion. She bought a sunlit townhouse in Santa Monica. Its small backyard wild with ivy and laughter. Ethan thrived making friends. Going to birthday parties Clara carefully vetted. Learning to ride his scooter down tree-lined sidewalks. The oppressive silence was gone, replaced by messy noise. Lego bricks scattered across the rug. The sound of cookies baking. Ethan's laughter echoing off cozy walls. Clara unpacked boxes of her old books, spread her research notes across the desk, and rediscovered her passion for history. She took on consulting projects, not for money but for herself. One Saturday afternoon, she and Ethan built a Lego castle. He held up a night. "This is Sir Reginald," he declared. "He protects the castle. He knows everything that happens." He paused, looking at her seriously. "Mommy, are you happy now?" Clara hugged him tight, her face buried in his soft hair. The word happy felt too small. She was free. She was herself. She was his mother. "Yes, my love," she whispered. "I'm very, very happy." Victor had once believed money could buy him anything: power, respect, even love. But in the end, the truth was simple. A parent isn't the one who can buy the most toys or build the biggest house. A parent is the one who knows, the one who listens, the one who shows up, peanut-free snack in hand, ready to keep their child alive. And no fortune could compete with that.